Okay. Mic check 1 2 1 2. I am the Y2K Collector, and I am back with a special video for you. Gonna be going over the top 40 pickups of 2022. It's a little more than 40, but gonna go over some of the best pickups that I've got this year. I'll honestly say that 2022 was an amazing year for collecting. I think this is probably the last year of all of the hype. I think a lot of the pandemic hype around video game collecting has died out. And I do think that prices on certain video games are starting to settle down. I don't think that there is that, all the hype around it. I think a lot of that has really died down. Even if you look on YouTube, a couple years ago, there were so many, folks on YouTube with their collection videos and game hunting videos, and a lot of those have just kind of faded away. And it's because people have gone back to normal life. Their responsibilities have returned. They got to do what they were doing before we had all this free time and free money. And so game collecting and reselling has really just the herd has kind of thinned out. So I was able to get some really good stuff, some really good deals this year, and I'm not going to do too much jabbering or blabbering, but I do want to kind of share some of these with you. Hopefully, once all the renovations and stuff are done, I'll be able to do a new game room tour and kind of show you everything that I've got. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and start off with these, and we're going to start off with the Nintendo pickups. We're going to go to some Genesis pickups. We've got some PS3 pickups, PS2, GameCube, Wii, even got some Neo Geo stuff. So this is only the retro stuff, right? So we're only doing really the PS3 generation and back. So anything prior to that, really not doing too much. We'll talk about the PS4 and Xbox One stuff in another video. But for now, let's go ahead and dive into these pickups. And I'm going to go ahead and start with some Super Nintendo pickups that I was able to get my hands on in 2022. First up is going to be a copy of Super Contra for the Nintendo. So this was one that I was glad to pick up. There was a Contra collection released by Limited Run this year, and if you were able to get that, then you got a version of that game there, or that game on that collection disc, or if you got it on the Switch, the cartridge. Next game up here is Castlevania for the Nintendo. Again, another classic for the Nintendo. I wasn't collecting for the Nintendo, but wound up running into two very decently priced lots, as well as a top loader NES. So got Castlevania there. And then the last NES pickup for 2022, this is the best one to me, is going to be Batman Revenge of the Joker. This is an amazing NES game. Graphically, it looks great. Love the graphics here. Love the sound. Love the music. I had Batman Return of the Joker, I think, on Gameboy growing up. So this is a great one to have in the collection. So Batman Revenge of the Joker. Then we're going to shift into some Super Nintendo stuff. So definitely had a blast on the SNES this year, getting some really good stuff, and we'll dive right into it. We're going to go ahead and kick it off here with this guy. So Final Fight 3. Anyone who knows me knows that I love a good beat 'em up, and so Final Fight 3, adding that to the collection was great this year. Next up, you have Sparkster. So I'm a huge fan of Rocket Knight Adventures and wanted to add Sparkster to the collection. Got that added for the SNES. Next up, added another after-school classic. How many loved watching Batman as a kid? So The Adventures of Batman and Robin, beautiful game on the SNES, a lot of fun. Added that to the collection. Then also another classic here, Sky Blazer. I love my action platformers, and this is one for the ages. So if you've never checked this out, check it out. Sky Blazer, that's a great game. And then also another one for nostalgia, right? After school specials, we've got SWAT Cats. And this is a recent pickup. I recently picked up SWAT Cats, but this definitely has to go down as one of my best SNES pickups of 2022. And then second to last, you guys know that I love my shooters. I love my shoot 'em ups, and the Super NES doesn't have a lot of great shooters, but this one is definitely one for the ages, and that is R-Type 3. So added R-Type 3 on the SNES. Great pickup here. And then last but not least, when it comes to the Super Nintendo pickups, I had to trade over 100 games to get this game complete in box, but really glad that I got it. And that is a complete in box copy of Demon's Crest. So this was a really good trade for me. I really like this game. I love how it looks, the sprite work. I love the cover art. This is just a very pretty game. And so I was glad that I was able to add this. I think this is my only complete in box SNES game in my collection. So that does it for the SNES and the NES. Now we're going to keep it with Nintendo, but we're going to start diving into some of the handhelds. And we'll talk about some of the handhelds that I got. So I had a lot of luck picking up handhelds, and I'll show you a few that I got. First was this pink bubblegum or pink berry Game Boy Color. So this was a handheld that was added to the collection in 2022. So really good piece here. Usually the screens are bad, or like the stickers are missing from the back, but this was pretty clean. Added that there. Also added an AGS 101 to the collection this year. So this is a Game Boy Advance SP. This is the one with the backlit screen. This was in pretty good condition. The screen is great. Everything is tip top, super clean, and I do play this one a good bit. So got the Advanced SP there. And then also a handheld that I happened to run into at an antique store of all places. Found this Monster Hunters Generations. I guess this is the 3DS XL. This is I guess this is a rare one. Guy didn't even really know it, and gave me a really good price on it. I think these were at one point were going for around 400. Don't know where they're at now. But got this for a really good deal. So added this handheld to the collection as well. Now, wouldn't make sense to add handhelds without adding some banger handheld games. And I have 3 Game Boy Advance games that I'm going to go over with you here. So the first one, this one is great. I think I was playing this every day and night for about 2 weeks straight. And that is Dragon Ball Advanced Adventure. This is an amazing beat 'em up where you can do ground combos, air combos, shoot kamehamehas, this in all of its 2D glory. So I would definitely check this out. This is a very, very fun game on the Game Boy Advance. And then we can't talk about Game Boy Advance without talking about Metal Slug Advance. To this one, I added as well to the collection. A very fun side-scrolling, run and gun shooter. So we all know about Metal Slug. That one was added there. And then a little bit more of a unique game. Not many Game Boy games rumble, but this one does, and that is Drill Dozer. So this is a very interesting kind of interactive Game Boy Advance game here, and added that to the collection. This one is also fun, very pretty game. So really, really stoked about that. Just kind of keeping it with the handhelds here, since we've already talked about the 3DS. Gonna talk about some DS games that were added to the collection that were also amazing this year. So first we're going to start with a run and gun shooter. You guys know that I love my run and gun shooters, and that's going to be Commando Steel Disaster. So I actually had this game cart only, and then had a reproduction case with like the artwork. Found a complete in box copy and sold my reproduction version, and kept this one in the group. So this is like Metal Slug on steroids. If you've never played this game, check it out. It's a ton of fun. And that is Commando Steel Disaster. Then we've got some killer RPGs on the DS as well. First up being Lufia, Curse of the Sinestrals. So that's a great RPG that I got added on the DS. Another really interesting one with an interesting battle system here was Drugblade on the DS. So a very, very fun RPG game there. And then I'll show these two together because this is a great RPG series, and that's going to be the Izuna games. So Izuna and Izuna 2. So ton of fun here. These are some great RPGs that were added this year. Izuna 2 is actually sealed in box, so definitely glad to have those added. We're just going to go ahead and stick with Nintendo and work our way up. So why don't we dive into some GameCube stuff that was amazing, right? Didn't have a ton of GameCube pickups, but had a couple. First one was by Sega. This is a very fun action kind of cutesy game, and that's Billy Hatcher, right? So this one I did play on the GameCube. Love the graphics here. Some GameCube games are really amazing. This is one that I wanted to add. Glad that I had Billy Hatcher added rather. And then kind of like an adventure beat 'em up game, right? But Wario style in Wario World. So this is kind of like a real cool 3D platforming adventure beat 'em up style. kind of Nintendo games. So if you haven't played this, check out Wario World. Definitely a ton of fun on the GameCube. And then we'll take it up a generation and start looking at the Wii, right? So when it comes to the Wii, definitely ran into a really good Wii game here. There's not a ton of like Wii, like, you know, I guess for lack of a better term, there's not a lot of Wii bangers. The best games for the Wii are Nintendo games, like the Mario games, the Donkey Kong games. But ran across one this year that was really unique, and that's Pandora's Tower. So I don't know if you've ever heard of this game, but this is a really cool like hack and slash adventure style game by Xseed, and it's out on the Wii. I would definitely check this out. This is a ton of fun. I like the Wii games that allow you to use a little, you know, kind of like a more traditional controller, because I'm into those action games. So Pandora's Tower is definitely one that I was glad to add there. And so that kind of does it for the Nintendo stuff, taking us all the way from the NES to the GameCube and Wii, and then some handheld stuff in between. So really good stuff. Now we're going to kind of go ahead and shift over to the Sega Genesis, right? Because the Genesis was just, you know, forget just the Genesis, just Sega, right? This, for me and my collection this year, Sega was it. Added a ton of great Sega stuff, and really a lot of that was just recapturing the childhood nostalgia. I grew up playing more Sega than Super Nintendo, so there's a lot more that I'm not going to be able to show in this video, but these were some of the best ones that I felt like I wanted to pick out. So just kicking it off here with the Sega Genesis, one that I was glad to add, is The Adventures of Batman and Robin. Now, I just showed you the one that we picked up on the SNES. Graphically, that one is a very fun kind of like action platforming game. This one has more like run and gun shooter vibes on the Sega Genesis, and this is very fun. So Batman and Robin, glad that I was able to add that there. Another Genesis game that I used to watch my brother play as a kid. This is a really interesting shoot 'em up, Wings of War. Kind of disturbing. Some of the enemies are a little weird, but this is a fun one. If you're into shoot 'em ups, this is a good one. If you like games like Phelios and like Elemental Master, you'll like this one. So Wings of War was a good one. Who could forget Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, right? So I grew up watching the VHS of this, watched it a bunch. We were big Jackson fans, Michael Jackson fans in my family, rather. And when we got Moonwalker on the Genesis, it was a game changer. Just being able to control Michael and all his dance moves and get all your enemies to dance along with you was just a blast. So Michael Jackson Moonwalker, got that back in the collection. Y'all know that I love my shoot 'em ups, right? So of course Lightning Force was one. Once I saw a deal on this, added it. Love me some good side-scrolling shoot 'em ups, and Lightning Force is definitely one for the ages. And then beat 'em ups, right? Love my beat 'em ups as well. So Hyperstone Heist was one that I had as a kid. This was one that I got back again, complete in box, and all of these are complete in box, by the way. But got this back into the collection. A watered down version of Turtles in Time, but still fun nonetheless. And then keeping it going here, this is one that I played as a kid as well. The Punisher, more teenage. I was about 12, 13 when I was playing this one, but The Punisher, added this one back into the Sega collection. This is a classic. This is like a beat 'em up where you have projectiles at certain points in the game. You can pull out a firearm. You can pull out an assault rifle. Really cool stuff. Just a lot of bombs. You can use bombs in this game. Just a very, very fun and diverse beat 'em up. Definitely want to check out The Punisher for sure. And then next up, you have a really cool one here, Elemental Master. This is one that my brother played a ton. He had this growing up back in the day. This is kind of like a top-down style shoot 'em up. Even though you're not really flying, but it plays like a shoot 'em up. So, but this is really fun. Definitely recommend that. A lot of nostalgia there. So Genesis definitely had some gems that we added on the Sega Genesis. Just a lot of nostalgia, right? And all these games are fun action games, not super long, but just kind of get your adrenaline going. Speaking of adrenaline, definitely can't talk about Sega without talking about the Sega Saturn, and snagged a really sweet deal on this copy of Batman Forever, the arcade game. Now, I had actually been looking for this on the PS1, but when I saw it on the Saturn, we know that Saturn does the arcade style games the best, so couldn't pass it up. this one is a lot of fun. Very interesting Batman games. I got a lot of Batman games this summer, a ton of Batman. So, but yeah, this Batman Sega Saturn game was one that I wanted to add. A lot of fun. The power-ups are cool. Not a huge fan of the graphics on that one, but still a fun game. And then over the summer, I was able to get my hands on a Sega Saturn, right? So I've always wanted a Sega Saturn. It's just one of those consoles that seemed just so elusive as a child. Got my hands on one and got some really great games to go along with it. So first one up is going to be the Terminator on Sega CD. So this Terminator game is actually really cool, and I've said it before, this game plays a little bit like Hunt Down. Hunt Down is a game that was released for the Switch by Limited Run, but I don't know if Hunt Down was inspired by the Terminator or what, but very cool run and gun shooter game on the Sega CD. Great music, would definitely check it out. I love my shooters. This one actually was released on the Sega Genesis Mini 2, but you know, I definitely had to have the original in my collection, and that is Robo Alesti on the Sega Saturn. Yes, this is a kind of like a top-down shooter. Very fun game here. Recommend it. This is a very fun game. If you don't want to spend the money on playing it, the original, I would pick up a Sega Genesis Mini 2 because you can enjoy it there. So a really fun game. And then last but not least for the Sega Saturn, this one unfortunately did not make the cut for the Genesis Mini 2, but this is a really, really great shooter. So this is Android Assault. So the Revenge of Bari Arm. So this is a side-scrolling shooter game where each time you get power-ups, you can continue to get power-ups until you eventually transform into like a mech, kind of Gundam style looking warrior. And this one reminds me a lot of Hyper Duel. The only lame part is that in Hyper Duel, you can control when you transform. In this one, you can only transform once you've gotten a certain amount of power-ups. But this is still a very fun game. So very pretty game. The sprite work on this is great, and the music is awesome. So Android Assault. I almost said Assault Android Cactus. So great